on Memhem Beis 45b, near the bottom. It's like 10 lines from the bottom. So it's probably, if you're using the art school, it's probably on the last page for 45b. Rabbi Yehuda Haisra Minoli. So just to give context, because we're in the middle of an exchange, yesterday we saw machlokas between the Rabbanon and Rabbi Yossi Glili, and Rabbi Yehuda, he held like Rabbi Yossi Glili as well. That what happens when you have a tree, a sheer tree, that was planted initially not for the purpose of idol worship. It was planted initially for the purpose of regular use. And then later on was turned into an idol. Later on was served. So does that become forbidden or not? So the Rabbanon said, no, it's permitted. It cannot, because it doesn't become asur. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi Glili, they said that no, it does become forbidden. And they learned that out from the pasuk of Vashireim Tigadeun. There was already a pasuk that says Vashireim Tisrufim Be'esh, which means that there are Asherah trees to burn with fire. That pasuk already, we already know that pasuk. The Torah also says Vashireim Tigadeun. When it talks about when the Jews will enter the land of Israel, and it's talking about all the things that they have to do. So it says Vashirim Tigadeon. So what is that? That sounds like that the Asherah trees, you could leave this trunk, but you have to take off the branches. So Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi Glili, they want to say is that what tree is that talking about? Where it sounds like you just have to take off the branches, but you don't have to burn it. That's talking about a tree which is initially planted not for the purpose of idol worship, and then later on it was served. And therefore, the actual trunk of the tree is not an issue because that preceded being served. But grows afterwards is going to be forbidden, and you have to cut it off. But the Rabbanon disagreed. So we asked them, the Rabbanon, what are the Rabbanon going to do with this pasuk of Asherim Tigadeon? What are they going to do with this pasuk? Because they say if a tree was planted not for the purpose of idol worship, and then it was used and then it was served, it's totally permitted. So what are they going to do with this pasuk? So the Gemara said that they're going to use this pasuk for Yeshua ben Levi, who says what? He says that when it comes to conquering the land of Israel, the Jews were instructed not to destroy and burn and totally get rid of all the idols first before the conquest. Rather, they should just be mavatale, just get rid of the idols in a minor way, to destroy it, but not burn it, not totally get rid of every vestige of it yet. First, you break it. First, you smash it. First, you by the sheer tree, you tikadein, which means that you take off the branches, and then afterwards, once you're done conquering, then you go and then you'll burn it. So now we're going to come back and ask that according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, where does he know that this halacha is true? Where does he know that when they enter the land of Israel, when the Jews enter the land of Israel, at first they weren't instructed to totally get rid of to get rid of the idols in its entirety before the conquest. Rather, they're told to put that on hold till afterwards, but just to minorly destroy them. So where does he know that from? So he must have Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Hais from Inole. Where does he know this from? Nafkele learns it out. It says Abed Tabdun. It's referring to the idols in the land of Israel. There's Abed Tabdun means you should surely get rid of, you should destroy all the places that they serve the idols. But Rabbi Yehuda learns out from the double wording of Abed Tabdun, Abed, destroy, V'achakach Tabdun, and then destroy, meaning that there's two stages of destroying. That means that there's some delay in between in these two stages. So therefore, you can learn out from this pasuk that there's a first stage of destroying that still leaves something to it, and then there's a second stage. And what divides these two stages? So it's logical to say what divides them is the conquering of the land of Israel. Then the Gemara comes back. The Rabbanon, homi boili the oker avodas kuchavim shetzorach l'sharish acharal. We're going to ask about the Rabbanon. Why can't they learn this out from Avod Abed Tabdun? So the Rabbanon say, no, we need this pasuk that tells the halacha that when a person uproots an idol, he needs to be misharish acharal. Means he needs to uproot it and totally, meaning that you need to get rid of its name. You need to get rid of any vestige of remembrance of this idol. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda, the Shari Shacharel Minale. Where does he know that when you get rid of an idol, you need to totally uproot it? That you need to get rid of it, get rid of any remembrance of its name. He learns it out from the pasuk which says, "If means that you should cause to be lost their name from that place." Meaning referring to when the Jews destroy the idols, you should get rid of their name. You should cause their name to be lost from the Eretz Yisrael. So that implies a batem mishmam to get rid of their name, meaning you have to totally get rid of any remembrance. So now we come back. Okay, fine. What about the Rabbanon? The Rabbanon say ehu lechanos lashim. That's to give it a nickname, give it a new name. The Tanya, as it's taught in Brisa, Rabbi Lazar Omer, Menayin la'oker avodos kochavim shetzarach l'sharish acharel. From where do we know that if someone uproots an idol, it needs to be mishari shacharel, needs to uproot it? Tamaloma v'ibadtem mishmam. Torah says v'ibadtem mishmam. You have to get rid of their name. You have to cause their name to be lost. Amar lo Rabbi Kiva said back v'alo kvar nemar abeit abdun. Already says abeit abdun. I don't need that pasuk for that. Abeit abdun tells me that. Just like the Rabbanon. What's the Torah telling me when it says you cause their name to be lost from that place? To give it a nickname. We're at the top of 46a, right at the top.
Okay.
Yeah. We're discussing the machlokas, the Rabbanon and Rabbi Yossi, how they darshan the psukim of different psukim. I mean, the starting point of the machlokas was that the Torah says, Asherim Tigadeun. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yossi learned that to be that's referring to a tree which was planted initially not for idol worship purpose, and then was served. That over there, that it's forbidden as well. The Rabbanon those say it's permitted. So the Rabbanon say that no. So we're going to use that pasuk to tell us that there's two stages of destroying the idols. You destroy the idols partially before conquering Eretz Yisrael, and then totally destroy it after. That's what Asherim Tigadein tells us. So we said, where's Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda know that from? So he said he learns that out from Abeit Habdun. That pasuk tells us there's two stages. So he said, what did the Rabbanon use that pasuk for? So he said the Rabbanon used that pasuk that when you uproot an idol, you need to get rid of any remembrance of the name of the idol. So then we said, what does Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda use the pasuk of where does he know that from? So we're saying he learns that from the pasuk Yibatem Eshema Makom Ahu. And then we said the Rabbanon say though that's needed to tell us that when you uproot an idol, you have to give it a new nickname. And then we're reading a Bryce who's just talking about this. So again, Rabbi Kiva is saying that already says Abeit Habdon. I already know that you have to uproot it from the pasuk Abeit Habdon. What's the Torah telling me when it says you have to cause their name to be lost from that place? That's to give it a nickname. So I would have thought a good name, a praiseworthy name. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Well, Shevach Salakadai doesn't make any sense. You think you would give the name where the idol was a good name? Of course not. That doesn't make any sense. You want to give it a derogatory name. So El Yachol Shevach Lolaganai. I would have thought that you give a new name, but it doesn't have to be a praiseworthy name or a derogatory name. It's just another name. You just give it a new name. You have to rename it. That's it. Tamalomar Shakes Tishaksenu Vitaev Tahavenu Tisavenu Kicheremu. It means you should discuss it, and it should be discussing to you, and you should treat it as an abomination because it's cherem, meaning that it's an avodah zora. So therefore, we see from this pasuk that you should use a derogatory name. You should cause it to be abomination as much as possible. The idols. You should use it. You should make it a derogatory name for when you rename it. So Hakates, that how is this? How you koronosa base galia? If they would call it base galia, koronosa base karya, you should rename it base karya. Base galia. The word galia comes from a word of like gova, comes from a point of being of authority, of being of svara, of ruling. But karya, that word, it means chafira, means like digging. That's a word of lowliness. So you should give a new name that a play on words of the initial name. that initial name described prestige, and then you should transfer it with a name which describes lowliness, the base karya. Another example is ein kol, ein coats. It used to be called ein kol, like the eye of all. So now you should now call it ein coats, like the eye of a thorn, also a derogatory name in place of the original name for where the idol was. Okay. Tani Tana Kamed Rav Sheshes. A Tana taught a brisa in front of Rav Sheshes. Over here, I don't think it literally means a Tana because Rav Sheshes was an Amora, but I think there were certain people who knew a lot of brisas and we refer to them as Tana. So this person, he taught in front of Rav Sheshes, Ha'akum ha'ovdim es aharim es agvos in mutarim b'ovdim b'sayif. Non-Jews, or we call mazolos, people who serve idols, non-Jews, who serve mountains or high peaks, so they themselves are permitted, meaning the mountains themselves are permitted, like we saw in our Mishnah. A mountain cannot become forbidden, but b'ovdim b'sayif, those who actually serve the mountain, who serve the peaks, they get the death penalty with a sword. That the Rashi explains that since this is since this applies to the Shavuot mitzvah Bnei Noach, this applies to not serving idols is one of the mitzvahs that everyone is commanded on, even non-Jews. So, and over there we say that everything that any of the mitzvahs of Bnei Noach, which there's a death penalty attached to it, that's going to be with a sword. That's going to be heret. So that's why this has a sword penalty. That's the Brisa goes further. It says Zora rokos hinasur of dem b'sayif. Plants and vegetables, they're forbidden, and those who serve it also will get killed with the sword. So over here, again, the distinction between the mountains and the peaks and the Zroim and the Rokos is that the Zroim and the Rokos are planted by people. Therefore, you don't have the exclusion of that from the pasuk of Eloheim Alahorim Velohorim Eloheim. But as opposed to the mountains, where we have that exclusion from the pasuk. So the Gemara says, the Amar Lacha Mani. Who said this brisa? Rabbi Yossi bar Yehudi. This is Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. This brisa is Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. The Amar Ilan Shantol Sof Avodah. Also, this is Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda who says that a tree which is planted initially not for the purpose of idol worship, and then it ended up being served, it's forbidden. So Gemara says, how do you know that? The Brisa didn't say anything about that. Just say Velokma, establish the case. Bizram shezram mitchilu lakach. Rabbi Ilan shetom mitchilu lakach. Rabbanan. Just say it's talking about a case where whatever you're planting was planted initially for the purpose of idol worship. How do you know it's Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and we're talking about a case where it was planted initially not for idol worship and then it was just served later? How do you know that? So Gemara says, "Lo salakadaita." Don't think that. The Bryce is called Dumya Dahar, similar to a mountain, matching a mountain. Mahar just like a mountain was not planted initially for this purpose, obviously, because a mountain was created not by a man, and it was also beforehand. So too, this also is where it was not planted initially for this. Meaning, what Rav Sheshes is learning out is from the symmetry and from the comparison of the mountain to the plants, that the same way the mountain was not made initially for the purpose of idol worship, so too the plants also, and therefore that means this price is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, who says that it's something planted initially not for idol worship and then served later is forbidden. Okay. Well, the Gemara goes further. It says, "Itmar Avnei Harsha Nidaldalu." What happens about the stones of a mountain that become loose? That by themselves they come off, meaning it wasn't removed. It was just sometimes there's erosion in the mountains, and rocks come off the mountain. So let's say you have a rock on the mountain that's detached. So does it become forbidden when the mountain is served, or no? Is it just like the mountain it does not become forbidden to get benefit from if it's served as an idol. So, B'nei Reb Chia, Rabbi Yochanan. It's a machlokas of the sons of Reb Chia and Rabbi Yochanan. The sons of Reb Chia, Rashi says later, their names were Yehuda and Chizkiah. So it's machlokas between them and Rabbi Yochanan. Chad Amar Asuros. One says it's forbidden. Chad Amar Mutaros, and one says permitted. My time all demand of Mutaros. The Gemara says, what is the reasoning for the one who says it's permitted? So Gemara says, Kahar. It's just like a mountain. Mahar she'im bo tfisis de adam umuter. Just like a mountain, doesn't have a person involved. A person doesn't plant it. It's made by Hashem. Person can't make it. Umuter is permitted to get benefit from. Afhani she'im bo tfisis de adam umuter. So to these, they don't have. It doesn't have a person involved. Meaning, it's a rock that comes from the mountain, and it gets removed by itself. It becomes loose by itself. It's not based. A person doesn't remove it. It becomes loose by itself. So to here, we should just say that we see that anything which is in bo tfisis de adam, anything which doesn't involve a person in the process, so then that would be permitted. So to here, by the rocks. Sigmar says that back malahar shekim a chober. I'll ask a pircha. A pircha means is that when you try making some sort of limud, when you try learning out one thing from another, if you try making it, you say make some sort of distinction and you show why one thing is different than the other, even though we don't know necessarily in svara why it would make a difference, that shows you that's not matching and you can't learn out one from the other. That's the idea of a pircha. A lot of times we use a kavachomer, we use a pircha. It says you can't make this kavachomer because this is different because of X. And therefore, you don't have a right to go and apply this din that you see here to the place you're trying to apply it to. So to here, we're trying to learn out from mountains that it's ein bo tfisis de adam, therefore it's permitted. So to rocks that come from the mountain, and it's true that those are ein bo tfisis de adam. But we're asking is that but mountains have another factor. Mountains have the factor that they're attached. It's attached, and that's different than the rocks which are detached. So how do you know that something that's detached will also be fine? It won't become forbidden to get benefit from. So the Gemara says back, behema tochiach, a behema, an animal that disproves this pircha. That we know the Torah tells us that an animal, which an animal is obviously not attached to anything, an animal is detached, it walks around. And we know the Torah tells us that an animal does not become forbidden when it's bowed down to and served. Because we know that from the fact that Torah forbids an animal which was served as an idol from being used as a sacrifice, from being used as a korban. So from the fact that Torah forbids such an animal to be used as a korban, that shows us that for a regular person, not for the Beis Hamikdash, not to be used as a korban, it's permitted. Because if that was forbidden as well, the Torah wouldn't need to tell me that it's forbidden to use it as a sacrifice. Because of course, if it's forbidden for a regular Joe, surely it's forbidden for a sacrifice. It must be it's permitted. So we see an animal which is detached, and yet also it's detached, yet also it's permitted even after it was served. So Gemara says back, okay, fine, but I'll ask a pircha from that, learning out from an animal. Mal behema shekim balas chayim. I'll learn out from an animal but don't learn out from an animal because an animal is a balas chayim, an animal is alive. Who says that just because by something which is alive, we see it doesn't become forbidden to get benefit from if it's served? Why does it show us anything about something which is not alive? I mean, these rocks that become detached. So, yeah, you don't have the ability to learn out from that. So Gemara says back, Paryochia. But a mountain disproves that because a mountain is not alive, and yet also a mountain when it's served is permitted. The Chazar Adin. So the din comes back. Lo Rizek Rizeh, this is not exactly like this. Lo Rizek Rizeh, and this one is not like this one. But they both have similarities, and both have things they're not similar in. But both sides show us that those non-similarities, those differences don't make for a difference. So therefore, we could say Atzara Shava Shaben, the common theme between them, the common denominator is Shein Bem Tfisis de Adam Umuter. It doesn't have a person involved and it's permitted. Av Kol Shein Bem Tfisis de Adam Umuter. So to anything which does not have a person involved, it's permitted. So meaning basically there's idea of that we can make a limud and you can learn from more than one thing. And each thing individually you can't learn out from because there's some difference. because you bring in another factor which shows that difference won't make for a difference. But that factor alone is also not good enough to learn out from because there's a difference there. Once you have both, you show that the differences of each are counterbalanced by the other one. And then we just say that we see there's a common denominator that even though one has one factor that the other doesn't, and the other has a factor that the first one doesn't, they both have one factor that remains true, which is that Ein B'Hem Tzvis Dei Adam, and therefore we can learn out anything which doesn't have Tzvis Dei Adam is permitted. So too these rocks. So Gemara says, but one second. We'll ask if we're going to ask him Pircha again, that you can't learn out from these two things, because these two things alone is they weren't changed from their original form. That how do you know that when something is changed from its original form, like the rocks which are removed from the mountain, that would be permitted as well? Maybe only over here in these two cases, an animal and a real mountain where it's not changed from its original form, would it not become forbidden? So the Gemara says back, Ella, rather, asim a behema bas mum mehar. We don't learn out from a regular animal on a mountain. Rather, it's learned out from an animal which is a balas mum, an animal which has a blemish and a mountain. That's where we're learning out from. That meaning, same idea, is that also it doesn't make a difference. An animal with a blemish is equal to an animal without a blemish, that they're both not forbidden to a person if it's served. So same thing. We'll say when we want to learn out from the rocks from the mountain, same way the mountain is Ein B'Hem Tzvis Dei Adam, person's not involved in creating it, and it's permitted. So to the rocks, they'll say, oh, what do you mean? But the rocks are detached and the mountain is attached. So say, look at an animal that's a balas mum, that's detached and it's permitted. So you say, okay, if an animal's alive, so the mountain disproves that. And if you can't say that, oh, but they're not nishtanim b'brios, they changed from the original form, because the animal did change from its original form. It's the balas mum. So that's one limud we can learn out from. Inami, another limud we can learn out from is min behema tama or mehilan yovesh. Is it can be learned out from a behema tama, meaning an animal without a mum, an unblemished animal, and from a dried tree, meaning that this is according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, that when it comes to a tree which was planted not for the purpose of idol worship. I'm sorry, it's according to the Rabbanon. According to the Rabbanon, if you have a tree which was planted not originally not for the purpose of idol worship, it was so that's going to be permitted, that type of tree. So this is Ein B'Hem Tzvis Dei Adam for the Rabbanon. A person is not involved. Even though a person plants a tree, since it was initially planted not for the purpose of idol worship, is going to be permitted. And it's Ilan Yovish, it's dried out, which means it's Nishtanim B'Briyaso. It's changed from its original form. And we could learn it out from this in an animal. They would say just like a Ilan Yovish, it doesn't have a person involved in creating it, and it's permitted. So too the rocks. They'll say fine, but the Elon is attached and the rock's not. Okay, fine, we have an animal detached. Oh, but animal's alive, tree's not. Oh, what about Nishtam B'Briyaso? Tree is Nishtam B'Briyaso. According to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, who says that no, if something's planted initially not for the purpose of idol worship, but later on, so it's also forbidden. So how are we going to learn out of here? So we could learn out the same thing if a tree grows by itself. If a tree that grows by itself and then it dries out, you can make the same limud between that and an animal. That again, just like the tree that grows by itself, it's Ein B'Hem Tzvis Dei Adam, person not involved in creating it, and it's going to be permitted. And it's also Nishtam B'Briyaso, it's changed from its original form because it's dried out. You might say, oh, but it's attached. So we learn out from an animal as well. If we learn from an animal, we might say, okay, an animal's alive. So we learn out from both. So the Gemara says back, okay, fine. So Manda Osar, the one for Biz, Lahachik Siv, what's he going to say? So he says, for this reason, the Torah says, Shakis to Shaksenu v'tayv to Savenu, that you have to make it disgusting, you have to treat it as an abomination. The Avogab the Asimidina, even though the Torah is trying to tell you, even though you might learn it out from a din, you might learn it out from a real legitimate way of learning out the halacha that is permitted. But Avogab the Asila Torah, Midina la Torah, you're going to learn it out really legitimately for hector, for leniency, for it to be permitted. Lo tasya, you shouldn't learn it out. Meaning the Torah is telling you, you always go to make it forbidden. You always go l'chomer. You're always more stringent. Even if it seems like you really shouldn't, you should permit it. still shakes checks in, still forbid it, still make it disgusting, still treat it as an abomination. And therefore, even though the one who forbids it says, you're right, you could learn out like this. But the thing is, the Torah says, despite the fact you could learn out in such a limud, it's still forbidden. Okay, so that's the machlokas. Now we want to figure out who said what. This time, we can learn out, we can prove that the sons of Rabbi are the ones who permit it. If a person erects an egg to bow down to it, what's the halacha? Because our initial understanding is our havmin is law. It's he erected it to bow down, and he did bow down to it. So that erecting it, is that considered a maisa or not? Is that considered a something that's done to a person to say that it has tfisi de'odam, that as a person involved in creating the idol? Do we say that that's a real action, and therefore a person was involved and be forbidden? Or do we say, no, it's not a real maisa, and therefore a person is not involved and be permitted? So the Gemara makes a diak of a low zakav, had he not erected low mitzvah. Let's say the egg just remained in its original place, then it'll be totally fine. It wouldn't be forbidden. Shema mino b'nei Rabbi Chia desharu. So we see from here the b'nei Rabbi Chia are the ones who permit it. We see that they really require that it be made through a person. It's not made through a person, it won't be forbidden. And therefore, so too here. So that's what we see from here. So too when it comes to the rocks become detached, since it wasn't made through a person. Therefore, it's going to be permitted. So the Gemara says back, no. Look, the Olam really, I'll tell you, Bnei Rabbi Chia, the Asri. Really, they forbid. They're the ones who forbid by the rocks. And really, if you bow down to it, even if you didn't erect it, it'll be forbidden. Because it doesn't make a difference, though, even though it wasn't made by a person. It's still served. If it's detached, and it's served, it's forbidden. Here we're talking about a case where he erected it to bow down to it, and he didn't bow down to it. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Who's this going according to? Asura. That if you're going to tell me that this is going according to the opinion who says that an idol owned by a Jew becomes forbidden immediately, so then it should be forbidden immediately. It shouldn't make a difference if you erected it or not. He owns an idol. It shouldn't make a difference. So this is machlokas later on between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Kiva about whether it becomes forbidden immediately or whether only after it's served. So, and the Gemara says, but if it's according to Mandar that it's only forbidden once it gets served, it wasn't served. So what's going on here? You're telling me, that's a case where it wasn't bowed down to. So either it should be immediately forbidden even without erecting it, or it should be not forbidden until it's served. So he erected an egg to bow down to it, and he didn't bow down to it. He didn't have the opportunity to bow down to it yet to serve it. A non-Jew came and he bowed down to it, he served it. So what's the halach over there? Can that non-Jew make the property of the Jew forbidden? Just like this, the Amar Abi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, a Jew who erects a brick to bow down to it. A non-Jew came and he bowed down to it. Asura is forbidden. We have a shayla levena who deminkor gifasa avabeitalo. Do we say that only by a brick is this halacha true? That if a non-Jew bows down to it, that because it's more recognizable that it's erected, and there's much more of a gilui das. There's more of a revealing of the guys of the initial owners. Das, he wants it to be an Avodah Zora, low, but by an egg, if this won't be true, maybe it won't make for a difference. Take the question remains unanswered. I mean, the question basically is that if we know for sure that the Jew made this to be an idol and he wants it to get served, so then definitely if the non-Jew comes and serves it, it will be forbidden. If the Jew did not make it to be an idol and the non-Jew serves it, it won't be forbidden, because we say in general the rule is a person cannot cause something to be forbidden if it's an item that doesn't belong to him. But if the Jew designated for the purpose of an idol worship, so there, and the non-Jew does it, then it will become forbidden, even though it doesn't belong to him because the Jew wants it to get served. So the question is over here, the shaila is that when it comes to an egg, this shaila is when it comes to an egg and he erected it, is this a good enough gilui das? Is this a good enough proof that he was? Is this good enough proof that he was intending for it to be an idol? The fact they erected it. So by a brick, which is much wider and much clearer, that's being erected. So then that for sure will be forbidden. But let's say, but by this egg, so that's just shaila Rabbi Chia. But really, if the Jew himself serves it, of course it's forbidden. Of course it's forbidden. It doesn't make a difference the fact that it's imbem tfisa de adam. The person wasn't involved in making it. The fact of the matter is that it's detached, and therefore it's going to be forbidden. So therefore, we can't prove from here the Bnei Rabbi Chia are the ones who permit by the rocks which are detached from the mountains. We don't know between them and Rabbi Yochanan who said what. Okay, let's go further. Let's say someone, he bows down to the mountain. He uses the mountain as an idol. Can we use the stones of this mountain for the mizbeach, to use it for the altar? We're going to 46b, just turns the page. Meaning, is there a halacha of nevad, halacha that if something is served as an idol, it can't be used for the Beis Hamikdash? Does that apply by something that's attached or not? Meaning, we know that for a person's use, if it's from a mountain, it's permitted. It doesn't become forbidden. But does it for the Beis Hamikdash, does that have a higher standard? So, and the Gemara says, even if you're going to tell me that there is a status of nevad, there is a status of something which is served by something which is attached by Gavoa, in regards to the Beis Hamikdash, that it will be forbidden. But machshirei carbon kagarban damu olo. You still have a question, which is that something is just used as preparation for a carbon, but it's not the carbon itself. It's not the sacrifice itself. Is that forbidden or not? Meaning, when it comes to making the mizbeach, that's just considered machshirei carbon. That's just considered something used as preparation for the carbon. But that's not the carbon itself, so that would be more lenient. So we have two questions. Number one, is it true that if something is served, if something which is attached is served, is that even though that's permitted for a person, does that become forbidden for the use of the Beis Hamikdash? And even if you say yes, it does become forbidden for the altar, which is just machshirei carbon, is that forbidden? Sigmar says, Amar Rava Kavachomer, Uma Esnan, just like something which is used as an exchange for a zona shemuter is permitted betolosh when it's detached lahedyo for a regular person, not for the Beis Hamikdash. Also, it's forbidden if it's attached for gavoa, for what's lofty, meaning for the Beis Hamikdash. Savi esnan zona mechir kalev cannot bring an esnan zona, something which is used as a transfer, as a gift to zona mechir kalev, something used as an exchange for a kalev, for a dog. Loshna tolosh v'loshna mechaber. That the Torah doesn't differentiate. The Torah just says anything, whether it's detached or attached. Nevad she'aser b'tolosh lahedyo, but so something which is served as an idol, which is forbidden when it's detached for a regular person. Eino din she'aser b'mechaber legavoa. Does the din not dictate? Does the logic not dictate that it should surely be forbidden when it's attached for gavoa, for the Beis Hamikdash? So we're trying to learn out is that there's an idea that there's a halacha that an esnan zona, which means that something which is given to a zona, a promiscuous woman, in exchange as a gift for her to live with you. So something which is given for that, any money which is given, any gift which is given, so that is going to be forbidden to be used and to get benefit from for the Beis Hamikdash. It's disgusting, and can't be used, or something used in exchange for a dog. So the Torah doesn't differentiate there. The Torah, when it's talking about that it can't be used for the Beis Hamikdash, doesn't differentiate between whether it's detached or attached. It just says it plainly without any specifications. So that seems that even if it's attached, it's forbidden. Yet we also know that when it comes to an esnan zona, something given to a zona, that in exchange for to commit an act with you, something that is permitted for a regular person to get benefit from. So now let's move over to something which is served as an idol. Something served as an idol is forbidden for a regular person to get benefit from. So if that's more stringent than Esnan Zona. So if by an Esnan Zona, which is more lenient, that's permitted for a regular person to get benefit from it, it's forbidden when it's attached for the Beis HaMikdash. So surely when it comes to something which is served as an idol, which is more stringent, and it's forbidden for a regular person to get benefit from, surely it's going to be forbidden when it's attached for the Beis HaMikdash, for the temple. Surely that's going to be forbidden because it's more stringent. So Gemara says, I'll go exactly the opposite way. Just like which is something which is served as an idol, is forbidden when it's detached for a hedio. For a regular person, if it's detached, it's definitely forbidden to get benefit from. But mutter b'mechover legavoa is permitted to get benefit from it when it's attached for gavoa, for the Beis HaMikdash. And nemar Elohim Eloharim Eloharim Elohim. It says Elohim Eloharim, they're gods in the mountains, but not the mountains themselves are their gods. And we're going to apply that as well. That's stam. That's set with any specifications. Doesn't make a difference whether it's for a regular person's use or for the Beis HaMikdash's use. Loshna, right? The Gemara says Loshna lahedyo Loshna legavoa. It doesn't make a difference whether it's being used for a hedyo or whether it's being used for the Beis HaMikdash. So esnan shemotor lahedyo, then esnan, a gift to zono which is permitted for talosh. I'm sorry, lahedyo. It's permitted when it's detached for hedyo. Eno din shemotor b'mechover legavoa. Isn't not permitted when it's attached for gavoa. I mean, the Gemara is asking is that your din, your kavachomer you were learning before, was not based on anything concrete. It was just based on the fact that when the Torah says lo savi esnan zona mechir kelev, you shouldn't bring something given in exchange to a zona or something given in exchange for a dog, and you shouldn't bring that to Beis HaMikdash. That was said without any specification. So therefore, you were assuming that it doesn't make any difference about whether it's detached or attached, and therefore you learned out what you were learning out, that if over there it's forbidden when it's attached, so surely by something which serves as an idol, it's forbidden when it's attached to the Beis HaMikdash. But let's go the other way. Since it's not concrete, let's go the other way. Let's say that, you know what, something which is served is only forbidden when it's detached. Attached, it's always it's totally fine. So then we're gonna learn that from the pasuk. Elohim Eloharim, that exactly like we were saying before. That wasn't based on a concrete halacha. That was just based on the fact the pasuk says it without specification. So to here, Torah says Elohim Eloharim. We learn out from there, it's their gods in the mountains, but not the mountains themselves are their gods. There's no specification in that pasuk about whether it's for a hedyo or whether it's for the Beis HaMikdash. So let's assume that that's for everything, even for Beis HaMikdash. That even the Beis HaMikdash, if the mountains themselves are not forbidden. And then let's make a kavachomer the other way. That we know that an esnan is more lenient than something just serves as an idol, because an esnan is permitted when it's detached for sure for a regular person, non-Beis HaMikdash, to get benefit from it, whereas something which is served as an idol, and when it's detached, it's forbidden for a regular person to get benefit from it. So we know that something served as an idol is more stringent. So if by the idol, which is more stringent, the Torah still tells us that if it's attached, it's permitted even for the Beis HaMikdash. So surely by a zona, by something given to a zona, surely over there, something which is given in exchange and it's attached, surely that will be permitted for the Beis HaMikdash. So we'll go exactly the opposite way. And the Gemara says, "V'im Beis Hashem Elokecha." If you're going to say we can't learn it out because the Torah says Beis Hashem Elokecha, this is in the pasuk of the Estan Zona and Mechir Kelev. The Torah says, "O Salvi Estan Zona," you cannot bring what's in exchange for a Zona Mechir Kelev, Beis Hashem Elokecha, the house of Hashem. So that implies that it can't even be brought for the house. It can't even be brought for the to be used for the house. Meaning Rashi explains that we're going to make a drasha of Beis Hashem, that we're saying that something to the bias, something to attached. We make a drasha of that lo savi esan shal bias. You can bring an esan of a house. That if you give a house as an esan, you give a house as a gift in exchange to a zona, so that's forbidden to use that house and use the materials of the house to help build the Beis Hamikdash. So that seems to show us that from Beis Hashem Lokecha, that even something that's attached, something that is attached, is forbidden for the Beis Hamikdash. So you can say, oh, we can't learn that out because that's definitely forbidden because of Beis Hashem Lokecha. That pasuk tells us that by Estan Zona it's forbidden. But Miboile, that's needed Lechadetanya. So that for that which is taught in a Brisa, Beis Hashem Lokecha, the house of Hashem, your God, the Estan Zona can't be brought there. Prat Lepara, this excludes a cow. She'ena Baal Abayis, this does not come to the Beis Hamikdash to Rabbi Lazar, meaning that the Para Aduma, the red cow, which is used for purification of people who are Tamei Mace, so that red cow is not used on the Har Bayis itself. It was slaughtered on Har Zaysin. So therefore, we're going to say Beis Hashem Lokecha, that's excluding the Para Aduma, which is not brought to the Beis Hashem Lokecha. And therefore, if a Para Aduma is given to a Zona in exchange for her committing an act with somebody, an act of lewdness with somebody, and that paraduma could be used because that's not Beis Hashem Lokecha, so we need the pasuk for that. Chum say the pasuk Beis Hashem Lokecha is l'rabos as a rikuim. It's coming to include the rikuim, which are these little gold plates which are used in the Beis Hamikdash to cover the wall of the heichal, and since it's an adornment to the Beis Hamikdash, it also becomes forbidden. That's what Beis Hashem Lokecha is coming to include. So, but whether Rabbi Lazar or whether the Chachamim, we need Beis Hashem Lokecha for what they're using it for. So you can't tell me, oh, Beis Hashem Lokecha is coming to, it shows me for sure that what's attached by an Estan Zona is forbidden, because we need the pasuk for this, whether it's for the Para Aduma or for the Rikuim. So Amar Le Anoka Min L'Chumra, he responded and said, I was learning out L'Chumra. I was learning out based on this Kal V'Chomer that it's forbidden, something which is attached is forbidden by an Estan Zona. It's also forbidden for the Beis HaMikdash when it served as an idol. I was learning the Chumrah. But you, I'm Lakula, you're saying Lakula. You're saying to be lenient. You're saying, oh, that just like it's permitted by, it's really permitted by an idol which is served something, if it's attached, it's permitted for the Beis HaMikdash. So too, by a Zona also, if it's attached, it's permitted for the Beis HaMikdash. You're learning how to be lenient. And the rule is, that when we have a choice about whether learning out to be more lenient or learning out to be more stringent, we always learn out to be more stringent. So therefore, that's why I'm learning out, based on this Kal V'Chomer, that if it's attached, it's forbidden to be used for the Beis HaMikdash. So is that true that any time that there is to be more lenient, and we can be more stringent, that we go be more stringent, we don't learn how to be a little more lenient? For Azor de Pesach, the Pligi Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Kiva, the halacha of Hazor, of sprinkling for Korban Pesach, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva argue about it. Rabbi Eliezer savar l'chumra, k'mechayev le'legavra. Rabbi Eliezer holds to be stringent, and he's mechayev, he obligates the person. Rabbi Kiva l'kula upatar, kaparach Rabbi Kiva l'kula. And Rabbi Kiva asked to be more lenient. I mean, basically, the discussion between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva is, in Psachim, is about that. Let's say you have somebody who's impure from touching a dead body or being around a dead body. So the part of the process is you have to wait 7 days. You have to be sprinkled twice. You have to be sprinkled on the third day. You have to be sprinkled on the seventh day. Let's say the seventh day this year is Shabbos and it's Erev Pesach. So you have to serve. You have to bring the Korban Pesach, and you could bring the Korban Pesach despite the fact that it's Shabbos. But he can't bring the Korban Pesach if he's impure. He needs to become pure. How does he become pure? By sprinkling on him the paraduma water. That sprinkling is Asr D'Rabbanan on Shabbos. So the discussion is that do we do this on Shabbos to make him Michayev in the Korban Pesach? They say no. Right now he's impure. If he's impure, he's not obligating the Korban Pesach. He's exempt, and we're not going to go and make him pure through doing this thing which is Asr D'Rabbanan. So Rabbi Eliezer says he's Chayev in the Korban Pesach. We got to make him pure. Kiva says no, it's forbidden. I'm sorry. Rabbi Kiva says no, it's forbidden. Therefore, you don't have to tell him to bring the Korban Pesach. He's exempt. We're not going to purify him. And we show this the Tanan Heishav Rabbi Kiva Ochila. We'll learn the opposite way. Hazah sprinkling, which is only a D'Rabbanan, it's only a Shavuos, does not push off Shabbos. Shita she deraisa l'kol shekin. So slaughtering, which is deraisa, surely that shouldn't push off Shabbos. Meaning, Rabbi Kiva is learning out based on a Kal V'Chomer to be more lenient. Rabbi Eliezer was learning out based on Kavachomer, be stringent, and he was saying that just like Shchita, slaughtering the actual Karm Pesach, which is a Malacha Doraisa, it's a Torah Malacha. You're not allowed to on Shabbos Doraisa. That's permitted. So surely, for the purpose of bringing the Karm Pesach, so surely a Hazah is only has to do Rabbanon be permitted. Rekiva goes exactly the opposite way. Rekiva says, let's go Chiluf, let's go be more lenient, and let's say, oh, just like sprinkling is forbidden. So even though it's just Rabbanon, so slaughtering with Doraisa surely should be forbidden. So we see Rabbi Kiva is learning out, Lakula is learning out to be more lenient. He's learning out to be more lenient and say that a person does not have to bring a person does not have to bring a Karban Pesach if he's impure on the seventh day of Shabbos. He's being more lenient, and he's learning out. You could learn how to be stringent, and you could learn how to be lenient. And Rabbi Kiva is learning how to be lenient. So that goes against our rule, which we were saying that whenever you can learn how to be stringent or be lenient, we learn how to be stringent. So Gemara says back, no, that's not what's going on over there. Hasam Rabbi Eliezer Gamri. Over there, Rabbi Eliezer taught Rabbi Kiva the halacha that if a person is impure on the seventh day on Shabbos, and you have to sprinkle him in order for him to become pure. Rabbi Eliezer taught Rabbi Kiva a different time. Rabbi Kiva was a student. He taught him the halacha that you can't sprinkle, and he doesn't bring the Karban Pesach. But I relate Talmud, and he forgot what he had said. Also, Rabbi Kiva lad kure. Rabbi Kiva came to remind him. And now Rabbi Kiva didn't want to remind him straight out. Rabbi Kiva didn't want to explicitly remind him. And by the way, remember, you told me this halacha because that would be disrespectful. So therefore, Rabbi Kiva was trying to remind him in a way of a back and forth. And trying to remind him in a way without explicitly saying, you forgot the halacha you told me. This is the halacha you told me that you don't bring the Karban Pesach. So therefore, Rabbi Kiva was trying to learn out. He was trying to say, oh, let's make Kavachomer, Shchita from Hazal. Let's not Kavachomer of slaughtering from Hazal. It's just like Hazal does not push off. Shchita won't push off either, even though that's not really true, because we know Shchita pushes off Shabbos. We know it does. The Torah tells us that. We know Shchita pushes off Shabbos. But even so, Rabbi Kiva was trying to say this to remind him in a respectful way of the halacha. What happened was Rabbi Eliezer said, "That's crazy. What do you mean? Of course." The Torah says b'moado. B'moado tells us that slaughtering the Karban Pesach pushes off Shabbos. So Rabbi Kiva said back, no, b'moado is for slaughtering, but for sprinkling there's no b'moado. And then Rabbi Eliezer got very upset, and he said that this halacha is going to cause your death. That's what Rashi quotes. Rashi says this halacha is going to quote your death. You're saying the wrong halacha is going to quote your death. This saying that slaughtering is forbidden on Shabbos Karban Pesach is going to cause your death. So Rabbi Kiva got very, very scared. Rabbi Kiva said back, okay, you told me, you were the one that told me that this halacha, and even though he was trying to be respectful before, but now he had to say it straight out. So Gemara says, "V'hainu da'amar le, Rebbe al tach mireni." Rebbe, don't. I'm not sure what tach mireni means. Don't dispute me on this. Yishas hadin in a moment of judgment. This is what I accepted from you. This is what I got from you. Hazos shvus, hazos just rabbanon. But even so, it doesn't push off Shabbos. Meaning, Rabbi Kiva is trying to be respectful and trying to learn out from this fake Kavachomer, which is not really true. But it didn't work. And Rabbi Eliezer got very upset at him. Therefore, he had to tell him explicitly that, oh, you were the one that told me this halacha. But we don't see. Therefore, we're defending them. We're saying we from here is not an example of where you could learn how to be more stringent, be more lenient. We learn how to be more lenient. Because over here we really are being more stringent, and it wasn't a real Kavachomer. Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you for joining. Have a great day.